Last week I did one of these Morning Pitt videos. I think it might have been Thursday. I think it, well, obviously it wasn't Friday because that's when we do the mailbag, right? And Wednesday I had a different, I forget what Arvin talked about on Wednesday, but I think it was Thursday. And we talked about this, I think that it was a very simple, idea. The headline I think was either, is Pitt is in a perfect spot, or is Pitt in a perfect spot right now? And this was last Thursday. Pitt coming off the 3-0 start after a couple of comeback wins, and how they had sort of positioned themselves heading into the FCS game, which would lead into the off week, and then the month of November or the month of October with 3 games, and then the stretch run in November. We talked a lot about that, and it was this idea that Pitt was in a perfect spot at that point. Well, here we are, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, 5 days later, and I forget if I said it as a question on Thursday, is Pitt in a perfect spot, or if I said it as a statement, Pitt is in a perfect spot. But I'll tell you, it's a definitive statement now. Pitt is in a perfect spot. 4-0 start to the season. First 4-0 start to a season in 24 years. Undefeated non-conference schedule for the first time ever. We don't count 2020 because they only played one non-conference game that year. But since they joined a conference, since they joined the Big East in the early 1990s, they have never had a perfect non-conference year. And that's what they've got right now. That's what they've done. They've emerged from the non-conference schedule with no slip-ups, no failures, no losses. They defeated Kent State. They came back at Cincinnati. They knocked off West Virginia, and then they beat the pants off of Youngstown State on Saturday to wrap up a perfect month of September, a perfect non-conference schedule, and a perfect start to the 2024 season. And now Pitt goes into an off week. This week, no game on Saturday, all this extra time to rest up, and even more for guys like Desmond Reed who didn't play against Youngstown State before they go to Chapel Hill in 2 weeks, a little less than 2 weeks, to take on North Carolina. The first ACC game of the season, a huge game for Pitt, a huge opportunity. We'll talk a lot about that, probably even more next week. But for now, we're thinking about this perfect start, which truly is perfect. I don't think you could have designed it any better than what it's been for Pitt. To go through these first 4 games, not just coming out undefeated, but the way they did it, the wins they got, and where they stand here, approaching the final week of September. They're not in a good place. They're not in a great place. They're in a perfect place. And that's what we're talking about here to get your week started on the Morning Pitt. So tune in and get ready. We got a lot to talk about after Pitt's 4-0 start to this season here on the Monday edition of the Morning Pitt on youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com. Yeah, it's Monday. Monday after a game day. Monday after a game win. And really, Monday after a game-winning month. Pitt wraps up the month of September by blowing out Youngstown State on Saturday at Acrisure Stadium, 73-17. I mean, just a complete, throttling of Youngstown State, start to finish. The offense was unstoppable. They had 1 drive that didn't result in points, and and only 2 drives on the whole day that didn't result in a touchdown. Pitt was scoring at will in lots of different ways. Eli Holstein, another masterful performance, should get him to his 4th ACC Rookie of the Week recognition. When that's announced later today, when the ACC announces its weekly honors. I actually went through, and I'll put these stats up another time, probably this afternoon, and maybe we'll talk about it another time, but I went and tracked all of the ACC Rookie of the Week winners, basically since 2013, and yeah, if Eli Holstein does what I would expect him to do and get that 4th ACC Rookie of the Week honor in 4 weeks, he's going to join some pretty rarefied company. There aren't many guys who have won ACC Rookie of the Week 4 times or more over the course of a single season. And they're some of the biggest names in ACC history. I mean, quite frankly, some of the biggest names playing NFL football right now. But we'll talk about that after that comes to pass. We'll wait and see. But Eli Holstein, masterful. He's now got 12 passing touchdowns on the season, almost 1,200 passing yards through 4 games. He has been outstanding for Pitt. And after leading the way to a couple of comeback wins in the last 2 weeks, he just went out there and put his foot on Youngstown State with the running, with the passing. He was all over the place, and did a whole lot of damage, and it was impressive to see. We got a lot to talk about. We got a lot to talk about with Holstein, got a lot to talk about with these wins, got a lot to talk about with the overall state of Pitt football as they head into this off week and kind of where they stand and who they are and what's really gone right for the team in September. Of course, a couple things we got to ask you to do right off the bat. Like this video and subscribe. YouTube.com/Panther-Lair.com. It's the best. It's where we put all of our Pitt video content, whether it's these daily morning Pitt videos Monday through Friday, our weekly live show that we do every Wednesday night at 8:30 p.m., or our post-game shows, which are always a lot of fun. We drink and talk about Pitt football for an hour or two, and it's a good time. It's a good way to blow off some steam at the end of a long football day. Saturday night, we were watching Cal FSU and how that game came to a close. It might not make for a great re-listen, you know what I mean, later, if you listen on Sunday or if you're catching up on the post-game show today, there's a whole stretch there near the end where we're just talking about the Cal FSU game while it's happening live, but that's kind of the fun of it. You know, it's fun doing those things live. We all get together and we talk about the Pitt game and keep an eye on the other games that are going on, and it's just it's a great way to hang out, and we do it right here at youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com. You don't want to miss any of that, the live shows or these daily morning Pitt videos or press conferences or interviews or any of those other things. So like this video and subscribe. Buttons right down there, youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com, and then you will never have to miss it. Listen, the other thing, too, if you never want to miss any Pitt info, whether it's football, basketball, recruiting, the place to do it is at Panther-Lair.com. And don't fast forward over this part because this is important. Okay, because since your Pitt Panthers are perfect right now at 4-0, we are going to give you a free trial of Panther-Lair.com that lasts through the end of the regular season. That's right. You sign up this week and this week only. Don't try to come at me next week and be like, dude, where was that free trial? You missed it if you wait until next week. Do it this week. Sign up with the promo code PITPERFECT. No spaces, PITTPERFECT, PITPERFECT. Sign up with that promo code, and you will get a free trial of Panther-Lair.com that lasts you through the end of the regular season. That's right. It's going to take you all the way up to November 30th. This season is turning into a very, very, very interesting one. And you want to follow along with the best coverage you're going to find. The place to do it is at Panther-Lair.com. So sign up now. Use the promo code PITPERFECT, and you will get a free trial that lasts you through the end of the regular season, which is a pretty great deal. And look, if these first 4 games have been any indication, it's going to be a very, very interesting season. Look, we can say what we want about the ACC, the current state of this conference, where they are, and kind of how they look, and what we think they're going to be, and where we think they're going to go. And who's going to be at the top of the league, who's going to be at the bottom. I think some of the teams expected to be among the best. Obviously, Florida State leading that list have turned out to be among the worst. There were teams that I think a lot was expected of, like NC State and SMU, and things have sort of fallen flat. More for NC State than SMU, but neither one is living up to the expectations. There are a few teams that have lived up to it. Miami certainly has. Clemson looks like it's rebounding from its season-opening loss to Georgia, and Louisville looks pretty good as well. They're undefeated. But by and large, this conference feels like there's a lot of opportunity. You know, Miami at the top of the league seems like they're positioning themselves finally to live up to expectations and live up to the hype. It's only 4 games, or it's only 4 weeks into the season, so I mean, we'll see how long that gets sustained. But Miami looks like they're going to live up to the hype, but it takes 2 teams to make the ACC championship game. And it sure feels like there's a wide open opportunity for a lot of other teams to fill that space. Clemson looks like a good option to fill that space. Louisville looks like an option to fill that space. Right now, Pitt, at undefeated at 4-0, looks like an option to fill that space. Now, Duke's undefeated too. So I guess you might say, well, they look like an option to fill that space. You know what? Boston College is playing pretty well. Who'd they beat? Michigan State on Saturday. Might be an option to fill that space. They're not undefeated, but they look like they could be a dangerous team. Georgia Tech, I think, has 2 losses, so that's going to be a bit more of a challenging road for them. But they look like a dangerous team that's going to have an impact on this conference. So my point is that I think it's pretty wide open. There aren't many teams you would say, wow, they're just out of it. You know what I mean? I don't think you're really fearing Florida State anymore. I don't know if you're really fearing North Carolina. Virginia Tech seems like they're running into some tough times. Virginia is probably what they were. Syracuse, we'll find out. Are they really going to live up to it? Is Kyle McCord really going to be all that, or is it another sort of Syracuse, smokescreen? that they're not really all that good. We'll see. Cal looks impressive to start the season. Stanford looks better than we expected them to be. Probably not good enough to be in that ACC championship hunt, but better than we expected them to be. It's still early, right? We're not even to the end of September. There's one more week of games in the month of September. Pitt's September is over, but there's one more week of games in September. So it's still very early to judge these teams. We're going to do it, though. It's an off week, and we'll probably have an ACC rankings episode of the Morning Pitt at some point this week. But on the whole, this conference feels open. And so if you're a team that has started the season 4-0, you're a team that has started, among your 4 wins in your undefeated record are 2 wins over power conference opponents, I think you probably feel like you've got as good a shot as anyone at getting, back to Charlotte for the first time in a few years. And I said this on the post-game show on Saturday night. As we talk about the position Pitt's in and what they've accomplished in September and kind of what they've done and what they've shown us, we could talk about individual players, and certainly that's a big part of it. Eli Holstein's a big part of it. Desmond Reed is a big part of it. The emergence of these receivers, whether it's Kanate Mumfield and Kenny Johnson or Raphael Williams and Sincerely, that's a big part of it. The emergence of these linebackers absolutely is a big. We could talk about a lot of the individuals. But I think a huge element in the optimism that surrounds Pitt right now is not just the 4-0 record, but what some of those wins were to get to that 4-0 record. We talk about 2 wins against power conference opponents, and then you talk about how they won those games and what they looked like. Because the reality is, and I said this on Saturday night, all right, I think if Pitt went out to Cincinnati and won by 12 to 17 points, and then they played West Virginia at home and they won by 12 to 17 points. Let's say they beat Cincinnati by 11 and they beat West Virginia by 15 or something. Just picking random numbers, right? And then beat Kent State, Youngstown State. Those results stay the same. But in between the Cincinnati and West Virginia games, instead of being what they were, they're just an 11-point win in Cincinnati, a 15-point win, against West Virginia. Pitt would still be 4-0. Let's say they'd still have all the offensive numbers that they've got. So all of those things would be the same. And the most important of all, of course, is the 4-0 record. But I think we would feel a little bit different than we do about this team right now, given the way they won those 2 games. Because it wasn't just an 11-point win or a 15-point win. It was much closer than that. It was single digits in both instances. But the comebacks, to be down by 3 touchdowns on the road in the final 20 minutes of the Cincinnati game, to be down by 10 points in the final 5 minutes of the West Virginia game, and to come back and win both of those games, one on the road in a very rabid, very loud environment, one at home against your most hated rival, who had certainly not anything close to a majority of the stadium, but an audible, visiting, traveling fan section. To win both of those games like that means a little something more, and I think inspires even more confidence than if the margin of victory had been greater. And it was just sort of a game, they maybe it went back and forth a little bit, but they pretty much just won comfortably by 11, or 15 or 17 or whatever it might be. And you'll say that's good. Those are good wins. They beat Power 4 conference teams. They did one on the road and one at home against a rival, and it'll all well and good. But doing it the way they did it, I think, inspires as much confidence and optimism as anything else. Because when you win a game like that, when you go out and win a game like that, and when you go out and you face that kind of adversity, in that kind of environment, that kind of situation, and you come out on top, you emerge victorious, there's a little something extra. It says a little something extra about you, about the kind of games you can win, about the kind of adversity you can overcome, about the kind of situations you can be in and still find a way to make plays to win games when you can go out and do that. And this Pitt team has done it twice. The West Virginia game was 9 days ago? I still marvel at what they were able to accomplish in those 2 games. West Virginia 9 days ago, Cincinnati 16 days ago, and I still sit back and I'm like, I can't believe they pulled that off. They were down 21 on the road against a power conference opponent in the final 20 minutes of the game. They were down 10 against a hated rival, a team that beat them last year, in the final 5 minutes of the game. And they came back and won both of them because they made play after play after play. And they did it on offense. They went down the field and scored on offense for 22 points against West Virginia, or against Cincinnati. And they went down the field and scored for a couple of touchdowns against West Virginia. And they made the stops on defense. And both sides of the ball had their moments where they looked very suspect earlier in those games, in the first 40 minutes against Cincinnati and the first 55 minutes against West Virginia. But they stepped up and made plays. And I mean, like, it's the most simplified, basic, empirical reading of football of, like, who wins a game? Who wins? It's the team that makes plays. Right? Like your most basic idiot reading of football is who wins a game. It's the team that scores the most points. Right? Like you want to boil all the football cliches down to one, all the hard-hitting analysis, the 3 keys to the game. It's always just who scores more points. All right? One level above that is who makes the most plays. Okay? If you want to be the team that scores the most points, be the team that makes the most plays. Be the team that makes the plays when you need to make them. And in those two games, they made the plays that they needed to make when they needed to make them in order to win. Now, as we said at the time, you don't want to, who was it? Who sang Living on a Thin Line? Was that the Kinks? It was a great song. I forget who sang it. But you don't want to live on that thin line. You know what I mean? You don't want to walk that razor's edge of always, oh, it's okay, we'll fall behind. Just manufacturing fourth quarter comebacks week after week after week. And eventually you're going to run out. You're not going to be able to do that all year long. Most teams don't have one double-digit comeback in the fourth quarter over the course of a season, let alone 2. And I would say no teams make a habit of doing it. And so it would be certainly in Pitt's best interest not to fall behind by double digits in the fourth quarter at North Carolina in 2 weeks, or against Cal and Syracuse after that. Obviously, it would be in Pitt's best interest to stake themselves some sort of lead, get the game much closer, or be ahead when they get to the fourth quarter. You can't do it every week, but what they've shown is that they can do it if they need to. That they're 2-0 in those situations. And I think that inspires confidence for their ability to come back. And it says a whole lot about the kinds of players they have and the playmakers they have and the guys who can step up in big situations that maybe they don't even need to wait until the fourth quarter to do it. They can also make big plays throughout the game. That's what they've shown us in the month of September, is that this is a team that can make plays. And it's gotten them to 4-0. It's gotten them to 4-0 with huge wins, and it's gotten them to 4-0 with a perfect month. There's only 20 teams in the Power 4 conferences who are undefeated right now. 20. 4 of them are in the Big 12, 4 in the ACC, 6 in the SEC, 6 in the Big 10. Pitt is one of those 20 teams. 15 of the 20 teams are ranked. Of course, Pitt received votes. They came in around 30th in the AP poll in terms of receiving votes. 15 out of those 20 undefeated Power Conference teams are ranked. Pitt is one that is not. They receive votes. Like I said, Indiana and UCF also receive votes. Rutgers and Duke, undefeated, did not receive votes. There are 10 one-loss teams ranked. A whole bunch of those 10 one-loss teams that are ranked are like teams that started off really high, like Michigan, who's 3-1. USC, LSU, they both have one loss. Notre Dame, Clemson are one-loss teams, ranked 16 and 17 respectively. Oklahoma State and Oklahoma, one-loss teams, 20 and 21 respectively. Kansas State, Texas A&M, Boise State, all one-loss teams, ranked in the bottom 3 of the top 25, all ranked ahead of undefeated Power Conference teams, Indiana, UCF, Rutgers, Duke, and Pitt. I'm not too concerned about that. I'm not going to sit here and make a Pitt's getting disrespected rant, because I'm not going to sit here and make a Rutgers is getting disrespected rant. All this stuff comes out in the wash. You know what I mean? Like, if you keep winning, you will make your way up. I think a week or so ago on one of the live streams, or maybe it was in a mailbag, somebody asked, like, if Pitt goes out and beats Youngstown State and they're 4-0, will that get them ranked? And I said probably not. I said, Pitt's best chance at cracking into the top 25 is probably going to be the North Carolina game. That if they can beat Youngstown State, get out of September 4-0, I don't think they'll get ranked from the bye week unless there's crazy stuff that happens ahead of them. I mean, like I said, there's 3 one-loss teams there: Kansas State, Texas A&M, and Boise State. Kansas State has Oklahoma State this weekend, so there's a possibility for a loss there. Maybe they can drop. Texas A&M has Arkansas at home this weekend, and Boise State, who is 2-1, ranked number 25, has Washington State, who incidentally is also undefeated. I actually had I felt bad. I thought I counted 21 Power Conference teams that were undefeated, and then I remembered that Polbray, Washington State, they're not in a Power Conference anymore. Sorry, guys. Sorry, Cougs. Apologize, but I had to cross them off. The number's only 20. But anyway, Boise State has Washington State, so maybe there's a potential for Boise State to lose there. Like I say, Pitt is number 30, though. Even if those 3 teams lose, I mean, some of the other one-loss teams in the 20s, Oklahoma State, Oklahoma, 20 and 21. I mean, like a bunch of teams would have to lose, and maybe lose badly, for Pitt to move into the top 25 during the off week, but it doesn't matter. Okay, it doesn't matter if they're ranked right now. It doesn't matter if they get ranked in the off week. They'll have the opportunity. If they go to North Carolina and win in 2 weeks and they're 5-0, they'll be ranked. I have no doubt in my mind. Then I would complain about being disrespected if they get left out of the top 25 at 5-0 with 2 Power Conference wins on the road, 3 Power Conference win, all this stuff. Then we'll complain about being overlooked or underrated or disrespected. For now, it doesn't matter. Okay? The rankings are entirely inconsequential. Okay? What's important right now, it doesn't matter if you're ranked 23 or 22 or 25. Nobody cares. It's true. You need to get into the top 20. You need to get into the top 15 before people start before it becomes something that anyone really cares about. Now, if Pitt goes to North Carolina and they win and they improve to 5-0, and then the next week they host Cal and they win that, if they could get to 6-0, now you're looking at a team that should be ranked in the top 15. Now you're cooking with gas. Now you're looking at this team can really accomplish something. We're getting way ahead of ourselves here, but when we talk about the rankings, we talk about Pitt not being ranked despite being one of 20 undefeated Power Conference teams. Well, that's part of it. Now, I will say after this weekend, there's only going to be a maximum of 18 undefeated Power Conference teams, because Illinois is at Penn State. Both of those teams are undefeated this weekend. And then Georgia is at Alabama. So 2 undefeated teams are losing this weekend. Maybe more, but at least 2. So you're coming into the weekend with 20 undefeated Power Conference teams. You're coming out with no more than 18. And again, Pitt's going to be one of those. Now, more of these teams lose, then Pitt's going to be one of even smaller group. But at the very worst, they'll be one of 18 coming out of the weekend. Raise your hands, honk your horns, if before the season you had Pitt going into the month of October undefeated. Raise your hands, honk your horns if you, before the season, had Pitt going into the month of October as one of 18 undefeated Power Conference teams. That's the spot they put themselves in. And it's Eli Holstein, and it's Desmond Reed, and it's Kanate Mumfield, and it's Kenny Johnson, and Raphael Williams, and Sincere Lee, and it's Kyle Lewis, and it's Rasheem Biles, and it's Brandon George, and Donovan McMillan, it's Cruz Brookins. It's all these guys. It's all these individuals, and it's Cade Bell, and it's Pat Narduzzi, and it's this team. It's this team finding ways to win. It's this team making more plays, which they've done for 4 games in a row now, consistently. And I got to tell you, it's really, really interesting right now. Listen, don't forget, when we talk about things that are really, really interesting, you got to go check out the Pitt collection in Homefield. Homefieldapparel.com is the place to find the best Pitt gear really on the planet. I mean, it's as good as it gets at homefieldapparel.com. They have some of the best Pitt stuff you're going to find. Great Pitt logos and designs. The graphics are outstanding. They're instantly recognizable as being Pitt. You would call them like a modern retro look, like a modern take on retro vintage looks. It's great stuff, high quality stuff, every shirt I have from Home Field is outstanding. Whether it's Pitt stuff or it's the Hawaii Rainbow Warriors sweatshirt I have, it all looks great. Get tons of compliments on it all the time. And it's made on the highest quality material. Like the shirts, they don't lose their size. They don't shrink. They don't get all stretched out of the waist or the neck or anything like that. It's high quality material. So I always say this. It's the best looking graphics and graphics and images and logos on the highest quality shirts that you're going to find. And here's the best part of it all. You go to homefieldapparel.com right now, use the promo code PIT24, and we'll give you 15% off your first order. So you get the best Pitt shirts you can find, the best ones on the market for my money and yours, and you get it at a discount. Use the promo code PIT24 to get 15% off your first order at homefieldapparel.com. They support the podcast. You should go support them. Homefieldapparel.com, promo code PIT24. All right, Pitt's 4-0. And they're off this week. So you get 2 weeks to enjoy an undefeated Pitt football team. Shout out to you. Thumbs up. Look at the little thumbs up bubble. Love it. All right. Thanks so much for tuning in today. Make sure you like this video and subscribe. YouTube.com/Panther-Lair.com. Check out the website. Don't forget promo code PITPerfect to get a free trial of Panther-Lair.com that lasts you all the way through the end of the regular season. Pitt football, basketball, recruiting coverage. It's all right there at Panther-Lair.com, and message boards to talk to other Pitt fans. If you're a Pitt fan, you want to go check it out. Panther-Lair.com, Pittsburgh.rivals.com. Thanks so much for tuning in today. We appreciate it. Hope you've had a great weekend. Hope your Monday gets off to a great start. And we will catch up with you tomorrow morning for the Morning Pit right here on YouTube.com/Panther-Lair.com.